For over a decade, in the world of technology, there was one undisputed king, a titan that built its empire on flawless design, an impenetrable ecosystem, and an almost religious devotion to perfection. For years, Apple didn't just participate in the market, it was the market. But the world changed. The age of artificial intelligence arrived, and Apple was caught unprepared. Suddenly, we're seeing promises broken and key features delayed indefinitely. We're watching as its rivals, like Google and Samsung, deliver the intelligent features that Apple users can only dream of. And we are witnessing the unthinkable. Apple, the symbol of innovation, is falling behind. So how did this happen? How did the most dominant company of our generation lose its footing in the most important technological race of our time? And with their next major event just around the corner, can they do anything to save themselves? To find the answer, we need to open the case file on Apple's AI crisis. Grab your drink, get comfortable. This is a deep dive into how a king can lose its crown.
To truly understand how the king began to lose its crown, you first have to understand the fortress it built. For the better part of 2 decades, Apple's business strategy wasn't just about selling products, it was about creating a world, a seamless, elegant, and perfectly integrated ecosystem. This is Apple's greatest strength. It's the almost magical way your iPhone, your Mac, and your Apple Watch all speak the same language. It's the consistent, intuitive experience designed to make your life easier. A world where hardware, software, and services merge into one flawless whole. This perfect integration is the reason Apple has achieved an almost mythical level of customer loyalty. We're talking about customer retention rates that hover around 92%. Once you're in the Apple ecosystem, leaving becomes almost unthinkable. The inconvenience of breaking that seamless experience creates a powerful lock-in effect. This isn't just a fortress, it's a 5-star prison that you never want to escape from. But this incredibly successful ecosystem is protected by a rigid, uncompromising philosophy known as the walled garden. This model gives Apple absolute control over its hardware, its software, and its primary distribution channel, the App Store. And this control is what allows Apple to guarantee the things we love about it: the quality, the security, and most famously, the privacy. And speaking of well-designed ecosystems, there's the YouTube ecosystem. And the algorithm says the best way to stay locked into this channel and not miss future case files is to hit that like button and subscribe. Just a thought. Now, this obsession with control is a double-edged sword. This rigid, closed-off approach means Apple cannot easily adopt outside technologies. It forces them to develop most of their capabilities in-house from scratch. And while this internal model is incredibly profitable, it has made the company slow and less adaptable to rapid technological shifts happening in the outside world. This is the central paradox of Apple's strategy. The very principle that secured their crushing dominance in the mobile age, the philosophy of absolute control over every aspect of the user experience, has now become their biggest handicap in the age of AI. The generative AI revolution, pioneered by companies like OpenAI and Google, is built on a foundation of massive, diverse data sets and the colossal scale of cloud computing. This requires a more open, more collaborative, and far less controlled approach to development. Apple's control-obsessed model is both philosophically and technically incompatible with this new world. They cannot integrate the best external AI models without giving up some of that precious control. And their own internal development is slowed down by the need to maintain that perfect, isolated integration within their own walls. And so the very fortress walls that once protected Apple from its rivals have now become a cage, preventing the company from effectively participating in the AI revolution happening just outside its gates. And the first cracks in that golden cage were about to appear, not in the form of a rival product, but in the form of Apple's own unkept promises.
The first visible crack in Apple's golden cage appeared at its Worldwide Developers Conference in 2023. The world of technology had just been turned upside down by the explosion of generative AI, led by ChatGPT. Everyone, consumers, developers, and especially Wall Street, was waiting with bated breath to see the king's response. What was Apple's answer to this new revolution? What was their grand AI strategy? The answer was silence. In a move that now seems bafflingly arrogant, Apple deliberately avoided the term artificial intelligence throughout the entire event. Instead, they opted for the safer, more sterile term machine learning, and presented features like an improved autocorrect and a new journal app. This was a strategic choice, designed to highlight their commitment to user privacy by processing data on the device. A year later, scrambling to catch up, Apple finally unveiled its response at WWDC 2024. Apple Intelligence. The shift in branding from machine learning to intelligence was a clear attempt to re-enter the conversation they had abandoned a year prior. But the features they presented, like custom emojis called Genmojis and new writing tools, were seen by many as incremental additions, not the revolutionary leap everyone was hoping for. But the most damaging part of the announcement was not what they showed, but what they couldn't deliver. The most exciting and truly intelligent promised features of the new Siri, its ability to understand personal context, its awareness of what was on your screen, its power to perform actions across different apps, were all delayed. Initially expected with an iOS 18 update, these core features have now been pushed back, with some reports suggesting they may not arrive until 2026 or even later. This was a fundamental break from Apple's core identity. The company that built its reputation on delivering polished, finished products was now announcing features it couldn't ship, breaking its own sacred rule. Beta testers of iOS 18 echoed this disappointment, with many calling the available features unimpressive while noting the glaring absence of the promised Siri upgrades. This string of unkept promises pointed to deeper problems within the company's walls. As delays and strategic uncertainty mounted, some of Apple's most key AI researchers began to leave, joining rivals like Meta and OpenAI. This AI brain drain was an alarming sign that even the people tasked with building Apple's future were losing faith in its vision. The king wasn't just late to the party, it seemed its own architects were leaving the building. But while Apple was struggling with its own internal crisis, its rivals were not waiting. They were already delivering the future that Apple could only promise. While Apple was grappling with its own unkept promises, the rest of the world wasn't waiting. The competition wasn't just catching up. In many ways, they were lapping the king on his own track. And nowhere is this gap more painfully obvious than in the daily, real-world experience of using their digital assistants. For years, Apple's Siri has been the symbol of the company's AI stagnation. Its inability to perform simple tasks, understand context, or work consistently has been documented in countless user complaints and reviews. Users describe Siri as terrible, getting worse over time, and the assistant incapable of even basic functions like setting a timer or playing the right podcast without failing. Its frequent response of just defaulting to a web search for a simple question shows a fundamental lack of intelligence. This failure becomes even more stark when you compare it to the features that are already available and working today on rival devices. Google's Gemini on Pixel phones and Samsung's Galaxy AI are not just promises, they're delivering a suite of practical, powerful, and deeply integrated AI features. We're talking about real-time live translate for phone calls, note assist for summarizing text, the ability to transcribe voice recordings, circle to search for instant visual lookups, and generative photo editing. These are tools that solve real-world problems, and they represent a level of intelligence that Apple, with its delayed Siri features, can only promise for the future. In fact, one of Google's Gemini's key abilities on Android is its screen awareness, the power to analyze what's on your screen and answer questions or perform actions based on that context. This is one of the very same headline features that Apple announced with great fanfare, but has now delayed until at least 2026. This painfully highlights the reality of the situation. Apple is still developing a feature that Google is already shipping. So Siri is not just failing at advanced AI tasks, it is now falling behind in the most basic functions of a digital assistant. This creates a constant point of friction for users, a daily reminder that undermines Apple's premium experience and damages the brand's reputation for innovation. The king's own herald can no longer speak properly, while the heralds of rival kingdoms are performing magic tricks. And this widening gap in capability raises a crucial philosophical question. Why is this happening? Why is the company with the most resources and the most loyal customers so far behind? The answer lies in a choice Apple made long ago, a choice between privacy and power.
So why is this happening? Why is the company with the most resources and the most loyal customers in the world so far behind in the AI race? The answer lies in a fundamental choice Apple made long ago, a choice between privacy and power. At the very heart of Apple's AI strategy is a philosophy that is radically different from its rivals: on-device processing. The goal is to handle as much user data as possible directly on your iPhone, not in the cloud. For more complex requests, they use a hybrid model called private cloud compute, where data is temporarily processed on Apple servers and then immediately deleted. This approach perfectly aligns with Apple's long-standing brand identity as the ultimate defender of user privacy, and it clearly separates them from competitors like Google and Meta, whose business models are built on data collection. But this noble privacy-first approach comes at a heavy price, a severe limitation on technological power. On-device AI faces immense constraints. An iPhone 15 Pro, for example, has only 8 GB of total RAM to work with. Battery life is a critical concern, and the size of the AI models it can run is severely limited. This is the fundamental technical trade-off. To protect our privacy, Apple has to sacrifice raw computational power. The most concrete consequence of these limitations is seen in Apple Intelligence's hardware requirements. The features are only available on the newest, most expensive devices with an A17 Pro chip or better. This cuts off millions of modern devices, including the standard iPhone 15 and the entire iPhone 14 lineup. This is a radical departure for Apple. For the first time, a flagship software feature is unavailable on a standard model that is only 1 year old. This decision fractures their user base and undermines the core promise of the Apple ecosystem, where it just works. A customer who paid a premium price for an iPhone 15 is now being told they are locked out of the next big technological leap. This is a trap of Apple's own making. Google's business model relies on ads fueled by user data, so processing that data in the cloud is a natural part of their strategy. Apple's business model is selling premium hardware. They don't monetize user data in the same way. So their stance on privacy isn't just a moral choice, it's a business necessity. They are forced down the path of on-device AI with all its natural limitations, like less power and higher hardware requirements. They're trapped in a dilemma. To truly compete with the power of cloud-based AI, they would have to betray their brand and their business model. But to protect their brand, they are forced to deliver a weaker AI experience and fracture their own user base. And this brings us to the core dilemma for us as users, and I'm genuinely curious to know where you stand.
Would you sacrifice some of your privacy for a smarter, more capable AI assistant? Or is Apple's on-device privacy-first approach the right one, even if it means being technologically behind? Let me know your take in the comments below. This philosophical and technical choice has very real, very tangible consequences, and those consequences are now being reflected in the one place that matters most to a corporation, the stock market. The market has already delivered its verdict. This philosophical choice between privacy and power, this technical trap of Apple's own making, it's not just an abstract debate for tech enthusiasts. It has had very real, very tangible consequences. And those consequences have been delivered in the one language that corporations understand perfectly: money. The market has already delivered its verdict. For years, the stock market valued tech companies based on the strength of their consumer ecosystems. The central question was, who owns the end user? Apple, with its impenetrable iOS fortress and legions of loyal customers, was the undisputed king of this model. But the generative AI explosion has fundamentally changed the rules of the game. It has added a new, foundational layer to the equation: the massive computational infrastructure required to train and run these large language models. And the market has decided that in this new era, owning the factory is now more valuable than owning the showroom. And that brings us to the most seismic power shift in the tech world in over a decade. In 2024, Apple lost its long-held title as the most valuable company in the world. And it didn't lose it to Microsoft or Google. It lost it to a company that most consumers had barely heard of a few years ago: Nvidia, the company that designs the graphics processing units, the GPUs, that are the essential hardware for training and running AI models. Their stock price nearly tripled in 2024 alone, a meteoric rise fueled entirely by the colossal demand for their AI chips. Analysts now describe Nvidia as the backbone or the primary arms dealer of the entire AI industry. They are quite literally the company selling the picks and shovels in the middle of an AI gold rush. And as every major tech giant, Microsoft, Google, Meta, Amazon, scrambled to invest billions in AI, they all had to buy their shovels from the same store. This shift reveals a fundamental change in how value is perceived in the technology sector. The center of gravity has moved away from the consumer-facing software ecosystems and toward the foundational AI hardware infrastructure, where Apple is not a primary player. So Apple's fall from the top spot is not just a result of its own AI fumbles. It is a symptom of a much larger market reevaluation, a sign that the world has changed and the old metrics for dominance no longer apply. The king's crown was not stolen by a rival king. It was rendered less valuable by the blacksmith who forges all the new crowns. This new reality, a weakened Siri, frustrated users, and a market that now values another company more, creates a situation of unprecedented pressure. And it all leads to one single day, a day where Apple has to stand on stage and convince the world that it still has a place in this new era. It is time to talk about Judgment Day. This new reality, a weakened Siri, frustrated users, and a market that now values another company's vision more, creates a situation of unprecedented pressure for Apple. And all of that pressure, all of those expectations, and all of those fears are now focused on one single day. A day where Apple has to stand on stage and convince the world that it still has a place in this new era. It is time to talk about Judgment Day, the upcoming September 9th event. The theme for the event, awe-dropping, sets an incredibly high bar. A bold statement against the narrative that Apple has lost its magic, especially in AI. The stakes could not be higher. This isn't just about selling new iPhones, it's about restoring investor confidence and proving the company's long-term viability in an age of artificial intelligence. On the surface, we can expect the usual hardware excitement. Rumors point to a new iPhone 17 series, perhaps with a stunningly thin new Air model, titanium designs, and advanced cameras. But this hardware focus is a double-edged sword. While it might excite consumers with beautiful new designs, it could also be perceived as a strategic distraction, a shiny new object designed to divert our attention from the much more critical software and AI deficiencies that lie beneath. Analysts are completely divided. Some believe the new hardware could be a catalyst, but many are warning of a potential sell the news event, where low AI expectations could lead to disappointment. This division perfectly mirrors the market's uncertainty about Apple's entire strategy. The success of this event will not be measured by the thinness of a phone, but by the credibility of the AI story Apple tells. Wall Street will be listening for any hint of a concrete plan, any real improvements to Siri, any sign of a clear vision. In this context, we can foresee 3 possible scenarios for Judgment Day. Scenario 1. The distraction. Apple dedicates the majority of the presentation to the beautiful new iPhone 17 Air and other hardware upgrades. AI is only mentioned in the context of the features we already know are in beta, and no clear timeline is given for the delayed advanced Siri revisions. The result? A short-term stock drop. The narrative that Apple is an AI laggard becomes cemented. Scenario 2. The incremental update. Apple showcases the new hardware, but also demonstrates some small new Apple Intelligence features that will ship with iOS 18.1. They give a vague, non-committal update on the advanced Siri, saying it will arrive sometime next year. The result? A muted, mixed reaction from the market. The company avoids disaster, but fails to generate real excitement or change the narrative. Scenario 3. The course correction. Alongside the new hardware, a top executive like Craig Federighi takes the stage and directly addresses the AI delays. They present a new, concrete, and accelerated timeline for the advanced Siri features, perhaps announcing a developer beta for early 2026. They might even hint at a major partnership to bolster their capabilities. The result? A potential stock rally. Even though the delay still exists, presenting a credible plan and showing a sense of urgency would massively restore investor confidence and signal that Apple is finally taking the AI threat seriously. And this brings us to the final conclusion. This report has shown a titan of the hardware age fundamentally at odds with the demands of the AI age. The very principles that defined its success, the closed ecosystem, the on-device processing, the culture of perfection, have now become strategic liabilities that slow innovation and give ground to more agile rivals. Apple is trapped in a dilemma of its own creation. The walls of its golden cage have isolated it from the revolution happening outside. Its unwavering commitment to privacy has left it at a technological disadvantage against the power of the cloud. And its most loyal users are being asked to pay an ever-increasing premium for an experience that is falling behind. The September 9th event is more than just a product launch. It is a public test for whether Apple has the vision and the humility to steer its massive ship in a new direction. What they present will not just be the features of a new phone, it will be an indication whether a titan can escape its own golden cage or risk becoming a beautifully designed relic of a bygone era. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into Apple's AI crisis. If this case file resonated with you, the best way to support the channel is to leave a like and subscribe for more debriefs to come. And if you're interested in more stories of corporate hubris and spectacular failures, you can watch our previous case file right here, where we deconstructed the billion-dollar disasters of Google Glass, the Amazon Fire Phone, and the Samsung Galaxy Note 7. See you in the next one.